Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Hey, David. Glad to be back, man.
Yeah, likewise. It is an exciting time, I think, just in this industry. I feel like Twitter last week was just going insane because Jack Dorsey was tweeting about the Lightning Network, which is something that we can discuss later in the show. But it was just incredible to see that really blow up.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can get a big influencer like that talking about crypto, especially someone with a few platforms that can uh, help the growth of Bitcoin. Plus, there's really no good news around crypto right now. So anything
Yeah,
seems like great
true.
news.
People have, yeah, anybody, everyone's sort of just, yeah, piling on almost to any little glimmer of hope. But we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll also get to Jack's company Square in a little bit, just to kind of give listeners a little bit of context. So, Mike and I have been just discussing the landscape of fintech, financial technology, and the explosion of these different instruments and vehicles for where you can potentially invest or put your money or savings. And there's really so much happening that what we're deciding to do is go a little bit lighter on each product that we cover each week, still get into a specific product that catches our eye or maybe that we're investing in. We'll discuss that a bit. But then we're going to link you up on our site to a table that's going to include all of the different products that we're looking at, with news about each of them, with details about each of them. So basically, just picture this giant sheet that has every fintech product that's catching our eye, that's updated for you to go do your own research. So we're going to dive into Acorns today, which is an app that both Mike and I use, discuss that a little bit. And then we're just going to cover some of the news, like what's going on in the fintech landscape. Yeah, it's going to be a bit more conversational. So that'll be the flow of the show from now on. So let's kind of get started with Acorns. I have a funny story to sort of start. I signed up for Acorns, I believe, a year and a half ago, and I actually forgot that I had signed up. And Acorns essentially is an app that every time you purchase something, it'll round up your spare change to the nearest dollar from that purchase. So if you buy something for a buck 50, there's 50 cents change to the next dollar, and it'll invest it for you into the market. And so I had signed up for Acorns, forgotten that I'd signed up for Acorns, and I see this email about an end of year statement, probably for taxes for 2018. And I sign in, and lo and behold, I have $350 in my Acorns account. So had an amazing experience, even though I forgot about Acorns. But yeah, do you want to kind of talk about your either introduction or your recent kind of usage of Acorns?
Yeah, and the use case that you're talking about is exactly the way I'm hoping it works for me. I think it's great for anyone who has a little bit of slack in their budget. They're not running too tight. Because like exactly, you're the exact use case that I'm thinking will work for me. Is you kind of forget about it. It kind of runs in the background, does its thing, and a year, 2 years later, you sit down and forget that you have an account. You log in and here's a little bit of money. And I think it's just awesome from a simplicity standpoint. You set it up, you connect your debit card, and it just goes out and it invests it for you based on five portfolio options. So I just think it's a really smart way for someone with a little bit of slack in their budget to do a little bit of extra saving.
Yeah, you don't have to think about it at all. And it's sort of like that thing where you're at the grocery store and they ask you, like, will you round up for charity or whatever? But every purchase you make, it is then investing in your future. And the returns have been pretty great. I believe my portfolio via Acorns, with the money that has been invested, has gotten a 12% return so far. Luckily, I kicked off unknowingly my Acorns experience in a pretty good time, I think, in the bull market. So
Yeah.
that might not be the same as what you would get if you start now or if you'd started a little while back. But I was pretty amazed. So it's sort of like a robo advisor. They take that spare change and they round it up for you. And so I had such a good experience once I started actually signing in again and checking out my portfolio, that I actually started implementing some of their new features around multiples. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a few interesting things you can do. You can multiply that spare change by 2 or by 5 if you want to increase the amount of money that you're investing on a regular basis. And I think this is something we'll get to later, but I really like this idea of like power-ups within financial apps. Um, as investors, one thing that people think about with stocks is rewarding your winners. So when your stocks are doing well, you want to tack on more money to that horse, essentially. And I feel like these like power ups that these applications are providing you with, like, do you want to 2x your change this month, or do you want to add a $5 a day plus a roundup to your change option? Like, I think it's a really smart way to get people engaged in a way that's fun and also benefits your long-term portfolio.
Like it's gamifying the experience. And, if the 1x kind of just goes along in the background, you don't really realize it, then why wouldn't you want to just throw a multiple on there? For now, I'm just set up at 1x. I think it's not something that I do a lot of like intentional allocations of cash on my own. So it's just something that, just do a little bit extra. So I'm cool with 1x for now. One of the other features that I thought was pretty cool, I haven't really gotten into much as far as utilization, but they have a new feature called Found Money as well, which they've partnered with some of the biggest retailers around, people that you already spend money with. And if you complete purchase in app, they'll those retailers or Acorns themselves will kind of boost your savings and send money to your portfolio for you. So if you spend, $100 through Starbucks in app, they'll send $10 or 10% to your investment account. So it's a cool way to get a little bit of return on money that you're probably going to spend anyway. So, it may be in the back of my mind as I'm ready to make like an online purchase of, this or that to potentially go through Acorns just to get that extra money back.
Right. It's almost like what we're seeing is competition for the points market. So obviously we're all familiar with credit card points. It helps you travel. It might give you some type of match where you get more points depending on where you shop that week. And that's kind of a bonus for the credit card companies and some of their partner organizations. I'm sure they work out some deal to set those things up. And now it's like, well, what if you shop through Acorns? What if you shop through Square? What are the perks that they're willing to give you? And it's sort of interesting because, Acorns isn't based on credit. So a credit card, you have to obviously apply for, get a credit check. With something like Acorns, it's actually based on sort of just you, I guess, proactively investing. And since they're not offering you credit, I think it's available to more people who don't have the opportunity to have really high tier credit card plans thanks to their credit history. So that's kind of encouraging as well, is that, you can sign up for something like Acorns and get perks, like you said, at Starbucks or wherever else you shop.
One of the other tiny, almost like features that you don't even realize, but, I do a lot of banking on my phone through Chase and Ally. And one of the most annoying things is having to log in, actually put in your entire username, type in your entire password to those apps on my phone. And it seems like a kind of a no-brainer. These guys actually you just use a PIN, just like I would for my debit card if I was swiping it at, the grocery store. And I don't know why a Chase or an Ally or these bigger banks don't use that same kind of PIN, because, I can essentially, if someone stole my PIN, could essentially do everything I can do online. Anyways, they could go spend my money and just type in the PIN. So I like that you can get into the app really fast. And I think that's a big plus.
Yeah. Another feature that is very smart for onboarding. And I think, a lot of this discussion that we're having on the show is about how these new vehicles are prompting new investors. It's not just people with a super high net worth, it's everyday investors are getting involved. And there's a lot of psychology that comes with that. There's a lot of education that comes with that. And so how these applications educate their consumers, how they bake in smart, I think, psychology into the applications is how they will win by helping their customers win. And another thing that Acorns did that's really smart is they have this projected savings kind of like graph. And I believe mine was for age 68. And I'm pretty sure I put my age into the app when I signed up. And so, like I said, I think after about a year of investing, I'd already saved about $350 in my Acorns account just from the roundups and from a 12% return. And they have this graph that says if you keep doing what you're doing today until age 68, I would have $350,000 saved in my Acorns account. And
Mhm.
showing me that number and showing me that potential, and that was sort of at the middle range, it could be higher, it could be lower, I think was really smart for helping users understand the psychology of why they're doing this in the first place. Um, and it's just so interesting to me if you think about banking and interest, quote unquote, the interest you receive in your bank account. I mean, it's pretty much nothing today. And so with Acorns, I feel like I have this entity who is helping me grow my income. They're helping me see my goals into the future, and they're providing a real return. Now I look at my bank account and I'm like, why is my bank investing my money to make their own gain? Whereas when I'm with Acorns, they're investing money for my gain. So it's just an interesting. I think we're seeing an interesting shift in psychology. I think the onboarding and these experiences and simplicity, like you said, help with psychology. And it's just about making it easy and helping you see the future.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's a gateway to being a more sophisticated investor. I mean, as long as you can type in some very basic, enter your credit card or your debit card, I'm sorry, you can start to be an investor. And that's the cool part. I mean, even signing up for like an E-Trade account or any kind of brokerage can be overwhelming because you have to sit and pick individual stocks or mutual funds. This makes it very simple, 5 options. They're going to do everything else for you. And I think it's a really good way for someone to get acclimated to what this financial world could be for them.
Yeah, you get the
I love it.
sense that these companies are working for you to help support you, and I think that's something that I don't get a feeling or a sense of in, I guess, the banking industry. Like you said, I think sometimes it feels more overwhelming. Like I'm having to sign all these forms that they're almost like vetting me. And I just think that relationship change and that brand change is going to help onboard people to new financial products. So I think this is a good time to bring up Square, because this is something we've both been interested in as well. Square Cash, the app, which is an app you can get for your phone. It's actually Jack Dorsey's other company. Jack Dorsey owns Twitter. He also owns Square. Um,
Mhm.
and I think, whether you know it or not, you use Square all the time, even if you don't have the app. It's actually the credit card reader in plenty of small businesses, likely in your area. But they have this great app that essentially is a competitor to Venmo. It lets you send money to your friends. And speaking of simplicity, the onboarding experience for that was phenomenal.
Mhm.
And I'm, yeah, the user experience of that app, I think it's maybe the best I've seen. It's incredible.
You cannot get simpler than
Yeah.
their user interface. It's really easy to navigate. And as funny story, I actually was listening to Joe Rogan's interview with Jack, and Joe had mentioned, and the reason I got interested in this was he said that basically uh, you can get a debit card through Cash App as well, and every purchase you make with it's a smaller selection of uh, vendors. I think there's like a Whole Foods. I think you can do a local coffee shop, but basically you can save 10% on all of your purchases that you use their Cash App for. Which $10 10% at Whole Foods. I mean that is pretty significant if you do a lot of shopping at Whole Foods. So that was interesting enough for me to just download it and test it out. I ordered the card. It actually arrived a few days ago. I'm still trying to get it loaded. I've had a couple issues, so I don't know if that's on Chase's side or if that's on the Cash App side. Still trying to figure that out. But the thing that really got me interested was you can do one of their boosts, is what they call them, where every time you use the debit card, the Cash App debit card at a coffee shop, you get $1 back. And as someone who spends, you know, one maybe 2 trips to a coffee shop every single day, I mean, buying a $2 coffee and getting $1 back seems like a no-brainer, even if that's the only use case. So
Yeah,
still
100%.
validating it, but that's enough to get me right there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I ordered so basically you set up this Cash App. It's sort of like Venmo. You can send money between you and your friends super easy. User experience is beautiful. And then they have this button sitting there that just says get debit card or something like that. And so it's dead simple to do that. You literally just click that button, you type in, your address and a few other things. And then they have this great idea, which I think is a really small detail, but makes it awesome. You get to customize that debit card. And so you get to, it's a pretty beautiful looking card. It's you can sign your signature on that. There's like emojis that you can put on it. And that part of the experience was really meaningful. And this is something I heard Jack Dorsey say in an interview, but he was talking about customization and just personalization in the banking industry and how it's really non-existent. Like most kind of banks and most processes really try to make everybody feel like they're the same. And he wants to bring this level of just detail and making it feel a little bit more personal. And I think another thing we're going to just see as time goes on is our understanding of money is going to change. And it's going to become a little bit less formal. And what I mean by that is, we mentioned Jack Dorsey tweeting about Lightning Network, which essentially is a layer 2 network on Bitcoin that lets you send even really small amounts, like fractions of a penny or a penny, in a really seamless way, almost like you're texting someone. And I think we're actually going to see the definition of money start to shift in our own minds. And it'll be a little bit more of like a friendly thing. And the idea behind Lightning Network was like, what if I could just text somebody $1? What if I could text somebody 5 cents? What if I could, just text somebody money? And that was Cash App as well. And so, yeah, I just like this overall feeling of me having a card that feels fun. It feels personal. It's giving me boosts, like you said, at the coffee shop. I'm using my Cash App to send money between people. Banking feels stodgy, and I think the new financial sort of frontier will feel more fun and fluid.
Yeah, I think. Did you hear that noise?
So I think someone knocked on my door.
Okay. Sorry. The other piece that I think is going to be a game changer, there's actually two pieces that kind of go hand in hand. One is you can also you can buy and sell, or you can buy and send a Bitcoin. So I think it's going to be a huge kind of onboarding experience for that, and it's a day-to-day peer-to-peer application, and it's one of the first clean, easy user interfaces that I've ever seen, which is like the original use case of Bitcoin. So I think that will be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think the other piece that is super exciting is that the integration between that and Twitter. Like, what could that be? Just having access to both networks could lay the groundwork for a lot of things that we can't even think of yet. So yeah. I'm excited that they're so linked by way of Jack Dorsey, and even in the last week or two, he's really come out and started to be a little bit more outspoken about it. So I think that was pretty interesting.
Also, I think another note is that the Square Reader, which is what plenty of independent businesses use, also could be an asset, I think, for the distribution of something like Lightning Network and making it possible to use Bitcoin at, if you want to use Bitcoin at your local coffee shop, Square is already sitting there ready to take it. But I'll pitch you my idea for how I think Twitter could integrate Lightning Network, because there's something I was thinking about, which is, and I think this is a tweet that I shared, but we're very used to the fave button. We're very used to the heart. We're very used to double tapping something to just show appreciation. And what I would really like to see Twitter do is add the lightning icon. And basically every time you hit a lightning icon, you send however much payment you want. You could set it ahead of time. It could be a penny. It could be 50 cents. It could be 10 cents. Whatever you choose, you set it as. And then as you're going through your day, essentially saying, yes, I think this is valuable with your thumb, you're also sending value. So I think that's a really interesting use case, especially as things sort of go viral and people maybe actually capture real value in return for the content they produce that creates attention that Twitter then goes and sells to advertisers. So you're giving your user base access to part of the revenue that you're the one generating.
Oh, I would do that in a second. I think that's great. That's really smart.
So we'll see if that happens. I think a lot of people are kind of saying, Jack, the famous quote from this week was, it was something about when, not if, Cash supports Lightning Network. And, a lot of people are saying, well, Jack just kind of talks a lot. Is he really going to do anything? But I think that the critical thing that he brought up, which is the reason for this discussion even, is that this is now possible. So whether or not Twitter does this, whether or not Square does that, the technology is now getting to a point where it's actually possible to consider. And that means tests will run and people will attempt to see. So, I'm not sure whether or not they're going to do that, but I think these tests will happen. And whether or not they're successful, maybe maybe the cognitive overhead of wondering where your money's going when you're tapping the lightning icon, maybe that's too much and people don't want to use it. But for the first time, we're able to see whether or not that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap. I want to point out there's an Acorns competitor that I'm trying to get on the beta on, and I will definitely update everybody if I do, called Bamboo. And it's bamboo.io. Bamboo is based in Australia. Their team's remote, and they have a very simple premise, which is really similar to Acorns, which is round up your spare change, but buy crypto. And they're trying to make I've actually spoke with their designer. I know they're trying to make their user interface super simple in the same way. You get to pick your allocation, how much percent Bitcoin, how much percent Ethereum, how much percent other crypto. But basically, if Bamboo comes out and launches that, I will definitely sign up, and I will also start rounding up my spare change to start buying into crypto. So I'll kind of keep everybody posted on that. And I'm hoping that they let me in on some type of early beta.
Nice. That's super exciting. I love it.
Yeah. So, well, I think that's a good place to leave it. As always, there's so much stuff happening. And we are trying to document all of that in this list, this new money list, which is sort of a giant picture of what's happening right now, what all these tools are, so you can go do your own research. We will link to all of that. For sure, this is not financial advice. We're not saying go put your money in any of these things. You should definitely be doing your own research. We're just kind of discussing and talking out loud what opportunities might be out there in the market that you could take advantage of. We'll be back again soon.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mike. Yep. Chat soon.